It was really fun for me. So a little bit of my process with playing piano. Some of you guys don't know this. I was absolutely terrified of playing piano about 6 years ago.
Really?
Completely terrified. I was required to play a piano proficiency for my degree. And for years, I counted down the days and the semesters and the weeks with anxiety. And it was horrible. My stomach would be in knots just thinking about having to play piano. And now, look at here.
Yeah.
This is really cool for me because I don't really care if I mess up now. Because it's okay, cool, that's fine. So it's just really fun to get to go on these journeys with the Lord, because it started out my fear went away when I started playing piano for worship music, and it was just me in a room in a sanctuary by myself.
Aww.
Yeah, so this is really sweet for me to get to show you part of my journey, because every time I play piano, it can either it just reminds me of how scary it once was.
Yeah, no kidding.
Do It Again.
I know, isn't that so
by
good?
Evolution Worship. Yeah,
So
tell the story about that one.
So that was the song that was playing on Pandora when Greg, am I turned up enough, babe? When Greg had his healing of his leg growing out, that was the song that was on. And when my brother-in-law had that dyslexia healed and whatnot, so I was like, Jocelyn, please, can we do this really long song? I'm normally anti-long songs, by the way. I just go, what song needs to be 7 minutes long, really?
That song, because there were multiple healings.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're going to have to turn it back down a little bit.
I'll go do it. Greg,
Okay.
You can take this one.
Okay.
I will switch mics with you, Mr. Greg.
Excellent.
Here you go.
Excellent.
I think Freebird is over 7 minutes long.
Oh, for sure, right? And now I think the average worship song coming from Bethel and some places and Hillsong is 8 minutes, 8 to 12. Yeah, that used to so intimidate me.
Elliot, would you mind coming up here for a minute?
Yeah, seriously, dude.
Would you join me up here?
Come up.
Not her, me.
Just
me.
Greg just wants to honor.
I want you to stand up here.
Should I take a picture here?
Do you see this?
Do you see the resemblance?
I'm so proud.
Yeah, right?
I'm so proud.
It looks so good.
I knew it was going to be, I was a trendsetter.
And it finally has happened.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on.
You happy with your new haircut?
No.
No!
It's awesome.
It is awesome.
It's like the perfect summer cut. You have your head has a perfect shape to it. You need to wear this with pride.
Run faster.
It is awesome.
Swim faster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you can
look
go.
Great.
You don't have to stay here anymore.
You look
unless you want to.
great.
You can hang out with the bald people. Clean shaven, cut hair.
Yeah, super good.
Thank you, Elliot. I think it's awesome.
I think it's a super styling. So most of you know that Greg bought a bunch of magazine subscriptions for me because we had points from someone.
Yeah, the Phoenix Trash Service, you every time you recycled, you could get points.
Yeah.
And then they stopped doing that, but I had all those points I'd never used.
Right. So Phoenix Trash Service decides to give points to magazines. What's that?
Well,
Yeah.
this service they used
Anyway,
until
the
they
service they
stopped.
used.
And so we got all these magazines.
So he picked them for me because he couldn't bear to go through the process of me having to pick for myself. So he
No
just
way
picked a whole bunch.
was I enduring
And
that pain.
He said, I'll get her Good Housekeeping. That'll be a good magazine, right? I heard that she liked
The
it.
choices were slim.
Maybe she'll actually become a better housekeeper, right? And I told you all, I brought the magazines, the first 3 were all on more decorating, right? Yeah! More decorating and more holiday cooking. So he was hugely disappointed that Good Housekeeping had nothing to do with good housekeeping. Super, super, super frustrated right here. And I don't blame him, right? So this is so exciting. This month's Good Housekeeping is featuring actual housekeeping. It's organize everything, clutter solutions for every room. Greg goes, this still does not solve this for me because I don't want clutter. I don't want a clutter solution. I want no clutter. But still, it's a move in the right direction. So of course we have Marie Kondo tidying up, and that's an exclusive. And apparently we could win a new laundry room, babe.
Could win a laundry room.
I mean, we could.
The new laundry room is going to have.
I bet it's a washer and dryer and
And it also has
Ironing
a
board.
spring cleaning guide. Not really sure what that's all about, but maybe you should read that and let me know what happens.
maybe I should read that.
Yeah, read
I
that.
don't have a problem keeping stuff clean. We've had this conversation.
Here we go. Stage a table at the foot of the stairs, and don't forget space.
Yes, stage a table at the foot of the stairs.
So you can put more junk.
kick it every time you walk down
And
the
so you can
stairs.
put more stuff there. Plop down a basket.
Plop down a basket.
Use it to collect
All right, we're
things.
done.
Okay.
Move on.
Well, you know, it might be the only. Yeah, anyway, thank you so much, honey.
It's just the gift that keeps on giving.
It is the gift that keeps on giving. If it's not educational, it's humorous. I love it. So good.
Are you sharing any of the other things right now?
I am, but
That's
not,
later?
no, not right now, later. Well, actually, I'll share one of them before the kiddos go. And then also, Jocelyn, I wanted to mention, maybe if we wanted to, just based on our numbers, we could let kiddos go to nursery if we wanted to. So that option is available if you wanted to. I have some fun stuff in back if you want to take. So anyway, you just decide. But I'll tell a story first. Okay, so most of you know that a week ago when I was hiking, I ran into, and I couldn't remember their names, but it was actually Christian and Joy. Is the couple's name. Yeah, at the top of the mountain. I know, right? Christian and Joy. The top of the mountain, and he gave me a beautiful, beautiful prophetic word. Like, you know, we got chit-chatting, and then we started heading down the mountain. He gave me an awesome word that was super encouraging. And so this last Monday, I was hiking, and I don't know, does anybody know the hiking etiquette as to who has the right-of-way on the mountain? Just, I'm going to survey, just, do you know? Angels have that? Well, that's true.
Is it the person does the person hiking up have the right of way, or the person coming down?
Going up. Going down, going up.
Who says, okay, first of all, who says going down?
Who says going down?
Somebody says, okay, Ava.
There we go. Who says going up? Lots of people. Who think it's whoever's going faster? Because there's a whole bunch of men out there who think that the rule is whoever's going faster has the right of way. Just saying, right? Okay. So the etiquette is?
The person going up always has the etiquette.
Always has the right of way.
The right of way.
Right? Yeah, because it's harder, and you want to keep your momentum going. Anyway, so I'm waiting for the woman who's coming up because that's what you do. Once I was taught that, and of course, by the way, you never know. Like this is what's funny. You get offended. You don't know what the rule is until somebody tells you what it is, right? So, and then once you find out what the rule is, all of a sudden you're offended with all the people who don't know the rule. Right? It's so like the law. The law is just that kind of a thing, right? Which is when you didn't know and you didn't care and you just broke the rules recklessly. But once you found out, you then instantly became offended with all the other people who didn't know. So anyway,
now that's not always the case.
Not always the case.
I don't get offended with other people speeding.
No.
I get offended with the opposite.
Yes.
If they're
with
going
every
too
other
slow.
activity on the road. Yes. This is true. So, Greg is an equal opportunity offender. He will get offended by anyone on anything on the road.
It's true.
It's true. It's true. So, anywho, I'm hiking.
Basically, I just want nobody on the road but me. That's what I want.
This is true.
Which is what everybody else wants too.
That's true. Okay, so I'm hiking and I pause for this woman and she looks up at me, and so I'm waiting for her because that's what you do. And she goes, "Oh, I just want to tell you, I was watching you hike up the mountain," which is odd. And I said, "Okay." And she goes, "I was watching you hike up the mountain and you were stepping so purposefully. Your hands were on your hips," which, by the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but when you cannot breathe, put your hands on your hips and put your hands right, because it opens up your lungs. So this is why my hands were on my hips, because I cannot breathe because I'm a bit out of shape. And she goes, "Your hands were on your hips," and she goes, "and you are perfectly well balanced." And I heard the Lord say, and she starts giving me a prophetic word. I know, right? And I was like, wait, I gotta get my phone out. She goes, "Oh, no, I just wanted to share what I was hearing from the Lord." And I said, "Yeah, I know, so I just need to record this." And so out of her mouth flowed this magnificent word. She goes, "You were perfectly balanced." And she goes, your healthiness and your intentionality was so significant to me, it caught my eye. And she goes, and you were just taking one step at a time, one step at a time. And so she then says, it was the Lord saying, it's just this present moment. You just need to stay each step at a time, this present moment, which I was about 100 feet away from the spot where I met the dog named This Present Moment. At the beginning of this church, when I asked the Lord, what are we doing? And he goes, we're going on an adventure, just stay in this present moment, right? So here's a woman 2 years later saying, just stay in this present moment, walk in health, walk in balance. And then she said, and I think the theme that God has for you this year is gratitude. And I just started laughing because I actually purchased just a couple of days before this card on gratitude, which I
Some people may look at that and think it's just another piece of clutter, but it's not.
No, it's a meaningful piece of clutter. It's a meaningful. Yeah, and by the way, for me to spend $4 on a card, not for someone else, for myself, is a super big deal. Because like I could have just taken a picture of it, but I had to honor the person who made this card. And by the way, also, you can see that it's something that represents each letter, which don't you just hate that? Isn't that like the cheesiest thing ever? It's like Mother's Day. Here's the words for mother, your mom, you know, like, just gross. I just hate those. But it caught my eye. And I was like, this is the best. Is it a mnemonic that is that when somebody takes the letters of something and makes it, isn't that a mnemonic?
Use it as a mnemonic.
Mnemonic device, right? A way to remember. But listen to this. This is gratitude. G is giving thanks, refreshing the spirit. I was like, yes. Appreciating the little things, thinking positively, identifying goodness, treasuring each moment. Can you even guess what they found for you? Like really, what are they going to do? You. Uniting in kindness. Whoa. I know, right? It's genius. D, delighting in laughter. And E, expressing joy. Like, I was like, sorry, you are genius. Whoever you are who did this, so good. And so I really did feel like God was inviting me into gratitude. And so I had to tell her, like, everything you said is spot on. I told her the story about meeting the dog, this present moment. I told her about buying the card, and she goes, oh my goodness, I just moved to Arizona last week. And she goes, I don't really feel like I hear from God like that. And I was like, really? I said, you don't practice? You should practice some more. I actually used the should word. And she goes, well, I'm going to give you something very special to me. And she goes, I'm going to give you this heart rock. And she goes, I carry it with me everywhere I go. And she goes, and I just feel like you are supposed to have this. And I know, right? It was just so sweet and so beautiful. And I just felt the Lord wanting to encourage me. And I'll tell all of you after we release the kids a little bit more about that. So super, super fun. I wanted to take a moment and give the kids, before they head, to go hang out with Miss Brandy. And will you help with that? Are you sure? You and the Holy Spirit? Okay. Genius. Okay. Well, before you go, if any of you kiddos have anything, Genevieve, you included, if you have anything you want to share that you're thankful for, and you don't have to, no pressure, but yes, Abraham. That was a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm happy about my dad not getting mad when we switch TVs.
Say it again.
Say it again.
We can't hear you unless you talk into the microphone.
I'm happy about my dad not getting mad when we switch TVs.
I'm his dad.
We did switch TVs. So because we're excellent parents, we decided to enhance his gaming experience by giving him the TV in our bedroom, which we almost never use, and taking his tiny TV in the playroom, because we decided to invest more in his gaming experience.
You're also really good parents by not giving you a better TV. don't think any different.
Yeah, no, super better parents. We're all raising magnificent children. Yeah, so anyway. Well, I'm super glad. I'm also super grateful, Abraham, that you did our setup for us today. And worked very hard for that. Super great. Okay, any other kiddo want to share a gratitude? A God/gratitude moment? All right.
I think they're happy that school's almost out, but none of them want to talk.
Good. Okay, we will release kiddos. Be magnificent, be game changers.
Take a pen.
Be amazing and magnificent. What are you looking for, buddy? Be careful when you take that off your hair.
By the way,
Yeah.
I hike at 4 a.m. and there are no other people on the mountain, so nobody ever stops me.
Maybe you should just drive us 4 a.m.
Is it dangerous?
Coyotes out.
There are coyotes. I hear them calling. But it's fine.
So you guys all comfy? I know we're kind of like a weird, so anyway, move where you want, get coffee where you want. It's just us.
We're just going to look straight ahead to all the people right in front of us today.
It's hilarious. Okay. So a lot of you know that Abraham, when he went to kindergarten, came home, he was of course crying on the first day. And yeah, thank you for shutting the doors. And he was super not happy. And so I was concerned for him all day long. First day of kindergarten, he didn't really love it. And when I went to go pick him up, I saw him on the playground. He looked super happy. And I said, dude, how was your day? And he goes, it was great. And I said, really? Your first day of kindergarten was great? And he goes, yes. And tomorrow I'm getting married. And I thought to myself, that is totally how this is going to feel. It's going to feel like one day he's in kindergarten and tomorrow he's getting married. And I was like, really? Who are you getting married to? And he says, her. And it was another girl. And for the life of me, I cannot remember her name, but it started with an A. So it was Abraham and I just can't quite, it's on the tip of my brain. Do you remember Darby? Anyway, she was so, so cute. Anyway, little blonde girl. Abraham was super blonde. Anyway, so he says he's going to marry her. And I said, well, that's awesome. Let's go home and you can tell me all about it. And we're getting stuff done around the house, and I hear Abraham in the kitchen. And I was like, oh, well, this cannot be good. And I go, and he has a bowl, and he has water, and he has eggs, and he has milk. And I said, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm making a wedding cake for his wedding tomorrow. I said, well, babe, he has no recipe. I love that he's at kindergarten and doesn't think that a recipe is necessary, and he's just going to make a cake. Like, that's like, you know, some sort of massive self-confidence. I would like to take credit for, but I don't think I really can. And I don't think you can either, but I'm just saying. And so I said, honey, you know, you're probably not going to actually get married tomorrow. You know, we need to meet her parents. You know, you need to know each other for a little while. You know, how are you going to support her? Because he could see that he's like going to start crying that he can't marry her tomorrow. And I said, so we just need a little more time to, you know, get to know her a little bit more, and then maybe you can get married. And he was like, well, and he's starting to get upset. And Greg's thinking, I will change the subject slightly, and this will help. And he goes, well, if you were to have a wedding cake, Abraham, what would you have on top of the cake? Would you have dinosaurs? And Abraham goes, Dad, it's a wedding cake. Like seriously, just like that. It's a wedding cake, duh. We don't do dinosaurs on wedding cakes. 6 years old. So he goes, wait just a minute. And he goes running off to the playroom, and he comes back and he goes, we will use this. And he has this, and then he has a little boy, which I cannot find the little boy. He was like a little conductor for a train. And he goes, we will use him because he is a boy. And we will use her because she is beautiful. Right? Is this not the cutest thing ever, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, you are so, so adorable. And how did he ever even learn that boys and girls go on a wedding cake? Like, how did that even happen? How does he even know about wedding cakes? We haven't even been to a wedding, right? So I'm thinking, well, where did this all come from? Anyway, so the kindergarten romance goes on. And about a week later, I said, how's it going? And we're just going to call her Aubrey, just because I cannot remember.
It was not Aubrey.
It was not Aubrey. But anyway, that's what we're going to do, to protect the innocent, and because I can't remember. It's Aubrey. So I said, how are things going with Aubrey? And he says, oh, Mom. And I'm like going, wait, what? You know, like, I'm ready. And he goes, oh, Mom, I am so sick of her. And I was like, really? It was a week. That was really fast. And I said, Why are you sick of her? He goes, Mom, she talks and talks and talks and talks. And then she talks more. She talks so much that I feel like she sucks all the words out of the room. And I thought to myself, that is a man with clarity who can actually communicate how he feels about a woman, right? In kindergarten. And then we're going to apparently socialize that out of him. That level of honesty. She talks so much, she sucks all the words out of the room. It's so genius, right? And I said, are you being unkind to her? And he goes, kinda. Kinda I am. And he goes, she keeps moving her cubby next to mine. So, because they can move their cubbies, right, that they put their stuff in. And so he goes, everywhere I go, I move my cubby and she moves her cubby next to mine. Don't you feel like I've moved all my dustables and all my stuff next to you? And you're like, just give me some space. For the love of kindergarten, I just need my own cubby space, right?
You have no idea.
I know, it's true. I have no idea. So I said, well, make sure that you continue to be kind to her. And I said, and maybe what you can do is tell her, well, now I'd like to talk about me, And I'm thinking this might be helpful advice, right? And he says, Mom, I have tried that. But every time I start to talk about me, she interrupts me and continues to talk about herself. I'm like, seriously? This is hilarious. This is like the whole dynamic happening of a birth and death of a marriage, truly, in kindergarten in a week and a half. So Aubrey definitely at some point did move on. Her eyes got shifted to someone else who apparently had better listening skills than my son. And we have lost track of her and what's happening in her life.
Oh no, I think she's married now.
Married at the ripe old age of 10. Yes, excellent. So, but it made me think about what happens, hi Ann, when we communicate. And so we're in this series on, shame a little bit, in this series of what God's doing in the place of vulnerability, creativity, and what shame has to do with it, and what failure has to do with it, and what courage has to do with it, because all of these things seem to be super related. And I realize that this impacts our relationships because so much of our sense of selves is developed through our interactions with others, right? Even as a young child, our brain is developed socially. We've talked about this. Our brain actually physically is developed through social interaction. We develop a sense of ourselves based on other people's perceptions of us and reflecting that back. We even have mirror neurons in our brain, which are those little neurons that help us see what other people see when they're talking, which means that we actually even have images of ourselves based on how other people see us. And if that's a super healthy reaction and a super healthy response, we develop a healthy sense of ourselves. And if that is not a healthy interaction or a healthy reflection back to us, we have a tendency then to have an unhealthy image of ourselves. And we then have what we call a mirror neuron deficit, which is a real thing, MND apparently, and it is that we have difficulty holding on to our own images of ourselves, and we continue to seek reinforcement. We continue to seek other people communicating to us and telling us who we are, because we have a hard time holding on to our own sense of self. Anybody experience that? That's when we cannot go with a decision that we've made. We keep seeking out more counsel to reaffirm that we're making the right decision. It's when we go to find other people to tell us what they think about what we've done, because we're unable to hold that sense of self on our own. And when we go to other people, what jumps up in the middle of these interactions, in marriage, in relationship, in friendship, in parent-child relationships, here's a communication thing that happens. So Greg, I'm going to have you draw 2 stick figures, but I am going to take a marker today, if that's okay. I know, you can just give me any color you want as long as it works. That blue one's good for me. That's nice and bold, thanks. So Greg's going to draw 2 stick figures on the board, because as we communicate with each other, just basic stick people. You don't have to get all fancy. Look, it looks like you, babe. Mr. Baldy, I love him. So, we communicate to someone else a thought or an idea, right?
I need to turn you down.
You do need to turn it down. Thanks, babe. We communicate a thought or idea, right? And to us it seems clear. And this person hears. But what do they actually hear? Do they hear what we have said all the time? Does anybody have perfect communication without any kind of errors? Right? No. So what happens is it comes through the lens of their own blame, shame, hurt, expectation, history.
Facing the speakers.
I know, I'm sorry. It comes through this like almost like a cloud. And what they hear is often not what we said, right? So then they respond back to us based on how they heard what was communicated and how that affects how they feel about themselves. It's important how we feel. Oops, not fell. Feel. Thanks. Will you take it? Feel about ourselves. And so what comes back to us often from people isn't a response to what we said, but a response about how they feel about themselves. And then that cycle continues. So what you thought maybe was an observation to a person who is wounded, it becomes, Greg, would you put over here, a condemnation. You're observing something. Hey, honey, I noticed that there's wet laundry in the washing machine. That is an observation. But what you hear is, you are a crappy person who leaves stuff in the washing machine. You're totally forgetful. You blah, 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 blah. Don't you feel blah, blah, blah. Now, if it was said in a way that was intended that way, well, then you read the nonverbal cues. But often what happens is we hear observations, they become condemnations, and then that's when we start to kind of like have issues. Because we now decide what that person intended on our own. We decide about other people's motives and intentions on our own based on what? Just go ahead. Based on our own past experiences. Based on our lens, based on our own past experiences. So would you put past experiences on there? So when we feel like somebody has made an observation that makes us feel like we are bad, that leads to shame. Different than guilt. You guys remember we talked about the difference between shame and guilt? What is the difference between shame and guilt? Anybody remember? Yeah. Guilt is, I made a mistake. Guilt is, I made a mistake. Yeah, I made a mistake. Shame is, I'm bad for having made a mistake. Or even that was bad. It's a level of judgment in it that's different than just guilt. And so when you start to experience shame, you start, because shame is so unbearable, we tend to want to get rid of it. Right? So we can do a myriad of things to get rid of shame. What are the ways that we cope with shame?
Eat chocolate and watch television.
No kidding, right? So we'll put it at the bottom. She says eat chocolate and watch a lot of television. So addictions are a huge way of dealing with shame. What else? That's so good. Yay.
Try harder.
Try harder. So performance. What else? Yeah, you're.
Self-harm or
Yeah,
like negative self-talk.
yeah, self-harm. And she had negative self-talk. Excellent, yeah.
Shaming others.
Yes. She said shaming others. So pushing it back on the other person. Shamming.
How many M's are in shaming? One?
Just one.
Because that's what I had. It didn't look right.
It didn't look right. I know,
Now I'm
right?
shamming others.
Not to be confused with shaming, right? Anyone else? So if we already have, and what I would just call this, and do you mind if you grab another color, babe? Would you grab another color? What this really is a mindset.
You can try that.
This is a mindset that is really the mindset that Jesus came to shift for us. That mindset that's focused on focused on self-preservation. This is the mindset that is trying to grapple with the freedom of, with the freedom of choice. Because shame and blame are only possible when we have the freedom to choose. And we've all been told stories, like from the Garden of Eden, that experience in the garden is a description of the fall of humanity, right? But I would dare to say that it's not so much of a description of the fall, and there's many scholars who would agree with this, that it's more of a description of the birth of humanity. And it is the birth of humanity into choice. And when you have the autonomy to choose, you have the opportunity to act outside of your authentic self. That's the choice. And so blame and shame and all of those things become possible. They're possibilities. They're not necessities, but they're possibilities. So anybody feel caught in this cycle with people in their lives currently? I have relationships that have been caught in this cycle where I'm pretty confident of their motives. I'm pretty confident that everything they say is intended to be critical. I haven't been able to unlock that mindset and to see things differently, and it may be partly because indications are that that is where they're at. So how do we win in this? Anybody got any thoughts? What do we do when this person's experiencing shame, being tempted to blame, this person's experiencing shame and tempting to blame, and it just kind of goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I love, you guys know that I've been spending some time in Brene Brown, and she just calls it like the shame fight. It's not really about what you're fighting about. You just keep lobbing shame on top of each other. It's the shame fight. It's typically not about what you think you're fighting about. It's about offloading onto each other the uncomfortableness that you're feeling about yourself. So, thoughts or comments? This is super exciting. I'm sorry, as if they feel like huge, super exciting because we know that Christ came to lay down the humanity mindset so that we can have the mindset of divine life with God starting now, never ending, the Zoe life. So the exciting thing is that there is just such a great path through all of this, but it requires like that interaction with God kind of thing. So, thoughts or comments? It's okay if there's not. What?
I have a thought.
Go ahead.
So the thing about your past experience telling you that what this really is, it means this, right? That attitude of, well, he doesn't like the way I do the laundry is because he thinks I'm whatever, right? So that the problem that I had always had was that I would try to convince myself that what I'm thinking and how I'm perceiving it to be is probably not true, and I just need to let it be. And that was just a big, huge tar baby, because it was probably really was true that he was thinking those things. But, what has helped me is to not be worried about what he's thinking. It's like I can either take responsibility for fixing the laundry now if I want to, or not if I don't want to, and so it's like, instead of making it about blame and shame and who didn't do it or what do you think about me, I can just say, I am really glad that you noticed the laundry needs to be taken care of. If you need me to do it, it won't be right now, but later I can do it. Otherwise, somebody else can do it. So it's just like not making it my problem, and continuing to respect each person's autonomy.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's probably too much detail, but
That's super good. Respecting each other's autonomy is a huge deal. It's a huge part of us being powerful people. I love that as I'm reading more of the research that Brene Brown did, that I'm discovering how much of our series on powerful people really ties in to everything about really courageous, vulnerable people who are creative. And all of us are a creative community. I mean, we're creating something here. In fact, do you mind flipping the board? So I asked Greg today about, because I wanted to understand more of how Brene got to some of the research, some of the conclusions that she got. Does anybody familiar with the kind of research that she does? Does anybody know the process? So I didn't know either, because I wanted to know, how are you coming up with these conclusions, about these things, because they super interest me, and it's called grounded theory. Anybody? So I talked to Greg about it, because Greg has his PhD in psychology, so I was like, he's my guy. But it is a sociology technique, so Greg's like, we have nothing to do with all that. So do you want to comment on it?
No.
No? You're good?
Go ahead.
Okay. So Greg and I were chit-chatting about it.